Hi, Alain. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me. It's a great pleasure.
My pleasure.
So, what have been the most important things in the building of your own musical language and style? And can you tell me, especially one thing that has drastically improved your playing? One thing.
One thing. One thing that made me improve my playing.
Sure.
Lessons I took with a piano player, an old piano player in Montreal named Art Roberts, who is no longer with us. And then he gave me, he opened my eyes to the vision of the harmony and how to improvise.
And the most important things in the building of your style?
Not trying to copy anybody. This is one thing I decided at some point, a long, long time ago. Obviously, I was listening to Ray Brown and Ron Carter. Ray Brown was my favorite upright bass player. I listened to Eddie Gomez, Scott LaFaro, and all those guys. And then electric bass players starting from, Larry Graham, and then Stanley Clark, and then Jack Pastorius. And especially when Jacko arrived on the scene, he was so strong in terms of style and sound. I didn't want to copy him because I knew if I would copy his licks or whatever, I'd be trapped in there. So I focused on playing upright bass for a long time to get away from the Jacko style. And then I developed, my own instruments to have my own sound, and then my own language also.
How did you develop your improvising skills, especially your soloing skills? How did you develop?
At first, as all the musicians do, I started copying, copying solos, transcribing the solos, and then copying the phrases I learned. But at some point, it was not enough. So I started to analyze what I played, what I was playing. And then this is why the lessons I took with the piano player really opened my mind, because he taught me how to analyze the chord structures, and then how to make nice melodies on top of it, to be melodic over chord changes, and then to analyze it. That was the key to me to open my playing.
Your approach to composition and songwriting. What aspects of your songwriting you attach more importance to?
There's not one thing more important than others. Music is based on three basic things: melody, harmony, and rhythm. Obviously, emotion is part of it, but basically, it's melody, harmony, and rhythm. So I try to change my approach. Sometimes I start with the melody, and I'm trying to write a nice melody that sings to me and then talk to me. And then I reharmonize it, and then I find the right rhythms to support that melody. Normally the rhythm comes along with it. Or sometimes I start with harmony on the piano, and then I write melodies afterwards. Okay? And sometimes I start with a groove, just a rhythmic pattern, and then I work around it. I write a melody starting from the rhythm. Most of the time I'm trying to emphasize one of these three elements. If I have a very complex melody, the harmony would not be as complex. Because if you have a very complex melody over a very complex harmony and then very deep rhythm, then it gets very confusing to me. So I'm trying to focus on developing one of the elements, and then I have the two other elements to support it. You can have a passage where everything is very complicated, but not for too long. So I'm trying to develop different techniques and approach when I write music. But first of all, you need to be inspired. So when I'm writing music, most of the time, I try to write in my head as much as possible. try to, in which tonality, what is the emotion I want to get out of it? Is it going to be a ballad? Is it going to be, what is it going to be? So I'm trying to imagine, okay, this, and to go as much as possible in my head before I go on the piano or on the chart.
Huh. Do you think, and in songwriting, do you think about your audience when you compose, or is a natural outcome?
Everything, everything actually. Sometimes it's just a melody that comes to me, and sometimes it's an ambience, a way I feel, and sometimes I say I try to put myself in a situation or in the position of the listener. If I would be in front of my band, or you know, putting the record and listen to it, what I'd like to hear. I'd like to develop different approach of writing, because if I use always the same approach, I'll keep ending, you know, writing the same tunes all the time. So I'm trying to develop different techniques to write music. Sometimes I start from the bass, but most of the time I start from the piano with harmony. And
do you think that the song that you have composed starting from the piano and starting from the bass are different?
Yeah, definitely different. For the ones who know my music, for example, a piece called Decode or Slam the Clown, were those two pieces I wrote them on the bass because it features the bass a lot. And then other tunes, for example, a tune called Solitude that was written on the piano. Obviously, I started with harmony. All the tunes on my record, Conversations, duet with piano players, were all written on piano. You know, so it's a different sound. It's a different approach.
How did you study and improve your right hand technique, especially its connection with your own sound?
Right. I have two different right hand techniques. My right hand techniques, when I play finger style, I play with 3 fingers. Okay, with these 3 fingers. When I slap with these 2 fingers and the thumb. And I use my thumb up and down, and I use these 2 fingers. Allows me to go up and down. So this is the 2 basic technique that I use. That I've developed myself, because when I started playing, there was no internet, there was no very few bass method. I bought the Ray Brown book. He was playing with 2 fingers, and a lot of time with 1 finger. You know. And then I started, you know, playing with 3 fingers at the very, very beginning. And then the slap technique I developed myself. I listened to Stanley Clarke, and then I wanted to be able to play melodies. So I've been thinking about finding a way to do it. This is the way I found, and I've been using it for years.
Develop your slap technique to make melody.
That's right.
Okay. Is there an aspect of your playing that you would like to improve particularly?
Everything. We always want to improve. You know, every time I listen to myself on record or on a live concert or whatever, there's always something I say, oh, I should have played this, or why did I play that, or, you know. This is what's so amazing about music, about playing an instrument. There's always something to improve. And it seems that the more you understand music, it's like an opening view. The more you see, the wider it gets, and then it's very, very challenging. Very challenging.
Have you got a specific approach to improvise a solo in a live gig? Or change depends from the tune, from the genres of music?
Yeah, of course. Depending on the song we play. If I play a standard, a jazz standard, it imposes a certain language, you know, bebop language, chromatic approach and all that. If I play a little bit more modern, then use a lot of pentatonic scales and stuff like that. And then more and more, you know, improvisation, there's an aspect of playing patterns you know. So improvisation is like talking. You improvise a text, you improvise a poem. It's like being an instant poet. So the more you know about the grammar, you know, the grammar of the music, the more tools you have to express yourself. So this is the way I approach it. Exactly as a language. A lot of people tells me it's way too intellectual. If you compare it as a language, it's not intellectual when you talk. People can be intellectual all the time. You ask them what day it is and they go into something deep all the time. And sometimes speaks very emotionally with very simple words. The most important thing to me is to touch people, is to say something. This is what's the most important thing to me. And then I use the skills and the tools I have. One thing that is very, very important to me though, and I've decided to change that a long time ago. I want to understand everything I play. I don't want to play a note I don't know what it is. I stopped doing that a long time ago. Because I don't want to be fishing for the right notes. And say, oh, maybe the one, oh, and then you play a wrong note. It's so disappointing. I'm not saying that I'm thinking all the time. More and more, it's becoming natural that I hear things before I play it, and I know it's going to be right. I know that note's going to be that note in the scale, and I know the emotional impact of that note before I play it. It's a different way of practicing. That changed my life.
Did you give some advice to develop soloing skills?
Copy, things you liked, the solo you like. But the most important thing, don't play it by ears, like a pattern, like a shape, like a different phrase in a foreign language, and you don't know what it means. If I learn a phrase in Russian or Japanese, and I know the sound of that phrase, but I don't know what I mean. I don't know what I'm saying. It's useless. So I advise the best advice I can tell you is to analyze what you play. It's intellectual, obviously, but there's no way around it. To me, I think it's obvious.
It's important to have control on the instrument.
Yeah, because most of the time we play faster than we can think. You need to develop to think faster than what you play.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much for your kindness. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.